Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Very challenging time in Los Angeles. Sports are not necessarily top of mind for everyone, but there are some considerations about whether Lakers are going to play tonight against Charlotte. Thinking of families, thinking of the impact on our community, and we'll talk about that stuff and more next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts, always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 27,000 people, quite frankly, may not be paying attention to what we're doing today, which we completely understand. Obviously, a very challenging time in Los Angeles with the fires across the region. Really thinking of everybody who is affected by this, not just obviously people in the Palisades and in Altadena and beyond, but members of our Locked On community have been impacted by this. So really. It's just a hard time for everybody, but we're here.
Yeah, hopefully this is a welcome distraction for a lot of our audience, which we know consists of a lot of Angelinos, just like me and Brian. Brian acknowledged how this has affected the Locked On community. We want to send our best wishes to Darian Vaziri, the host of Locked On Clippers. He's been public about this, so people may be aware, but his family home very likely burned down in an area that had been absolutely wiped out by these fires. So, Darian's been on our show a few times. Great guy. So obviously we are wishing him the best, wishing the best to any of our listeners, our viewers who have been affected by this. Stay strong as you can, stay as positive as you can, optimistic during a very difficult time. Be there for your people. And it's funny, I these fires that just keep breaking out around Los Angeles, it reminded me of how in 1983, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, his Bel Air mansion caught fire. I want to say it was some type of internal issue inside the house, but it burned down. And among the items destroyed was Kareem's jazz albums collection. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers know Kareem is a jazz fanatic, frankly, a jazz expert. He's written books on jazz, and he lost this collection. And Laker fans began bringing him albums to the Forum on game days to just help him replace that collection. And Kareem has said many times it was an act of kindness that really took him aback and meant a lot to him. And I bring this up just as a reminder for people in LA. This is a time to be kind to each other. It's always great anyway, but now especially really a time for it.
Do want to let people know before we keep going. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the account, download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA, $20 off your first purchase. Stories like that we learned on. It's Wednesday night as we sit and talk today. Tuesday night after the game, when they lost to Dallas, it was a terrible, really bad loss. Got a reminder of what this is, even for players and members of the organization. JJ Redick's family evacuated from Pacific Palisades. A lot of athletes and families and team personnel live in that area, so it's not surprising. We saw the news that Kawhi Leonard, Clippers star Kawhi Leonard, was taking time away from the team to be with his family. They've been evacuated, may have lost their home. I'm not sure. But point being, these are things that impact everyone. They impact the wealthiest members of our community and the poorest members of our community. And as you say, I think that that idea of being gracious to each other, being kind to each other, is the best approach to it. From a logistical standpoint, there's not been an announcement to this point as to whether or not we're recording around 8:00 on Wednesday for Thursday's show, that the Lakers will or will not play. They are scheduled to play tonight at home against the Hornets. I don't think they will. I don't think the NBA should put this game on if for no other reason than it is a bad idea to have people moving in, being on the streets, moving in a direct, all these things, and having 15, 16, 17,000 people congregating in any one place that might, for some reason, need to take first responders away from a different part of
you don't want to. I mean, there's always, understandably, correctly, a police presence at any type of event like Laker game, live events, concerts, whatever, and that's the way it should be. You do not want to be diverting police presence to the Crypt for a basketball game. My wife had mentioned that she had heard, I have not been able to verify this, but she had heard that the arena in Vegas had offered to allow the Lakers to play there. I'm sure maybe San Diego could be an option. We'll see. I mean, it's a logistical thing the Lakers also need to figure out because they have this string of home games.
Right.
So, but I would find it stunning on a bunch of different levels if this game happened tonight at the Crypt. I'd frankly be pretty surprised if it happened at all. And listeners, by the time they hear this, may already know the answer, but I would be shocked in the worst possible way if it happened at the Crypt.
Yeah, I think to use the NFL as an example, the NFL has already announced the Rams are scheduled to play Monday night against the Vikings. That game will take place one way or another. But if it doesn't take place in LA, and I do not think it will, that it will happen in Arizona. They'll use the stadium there. And I think something like that will happen with this stretch of home games for the Lakers, where they move to another arena.
It's like, I mean, remember?
And again, I could be wrong, but at the very least, I think that's what should happen.
Well, it reminds me of years ago during Hurricane Katrina, when New Orleans was flooded, and the Hornets ultimately played a season in Oklahoma City. And I don't think, I both don't think and frankly deeply hope it's not going to be that extreme for the Lakers as far as having to relocate for that long. But it would not surprise me if they needed to relocate for a few games. And I'm not sure if people can hear it. I have the news on in the background. Pretty much everybody who lives in LA has the news on in the background. Andy and I are both lucky enough to live in a part of the city that is about as safe from fire danger as anybody in the city can be at this point. Take nothing for granted, but it would have to get exceptionally out of hand for it to reach us.
But it's and that's the case for a lot of people around the city. But it's a really difficult time to be doing much of anything. That said, we will try to get you through the show, and with that, kind of move on to Lakers business. And there is some of that starting, Andy, with Jared Vanderbilt. The Lakers actually made an announcement about him, and he may be coming back this time for reals. We'll see. We'll talk about it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. I love live events, whether you're talking about sports, music, theater, comedy. One of my best memories of 2024 was going to Hamilton on Broadway last spring in New York with my family. My daughter, it was a great show. My daughter got to meet basically the entire cast afterwards. They were all hanging out, meeting fans. They were all extremely nice. My daughter got a bunch of selfies, and it was an awesome time. And Game Time has made it easier to have experiences like that at events with features like Game Time Picks that filters out all the fluff and like verbiage and just lets you know what you want, which is incredible deals on great seats. The app's all-in pricing shows the entire cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout, panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what the experience is going to be like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. And with Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. So all you have to do is complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. Only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. So we got a real live medical update, Andy, from the Lakers about Jared Vanderbilt, not sort of reports of this, reports of that, something from the official team site. And it said the following: Lakers forward Jared Vanderbilt has made meaningful strides in his return to play progression and has advanced to full court activities with contact. The team will continue to monitor his ramp up to ensure a successful return. Vanderbilt will be reevaluated in approximately 1 week. So that is a really big deal. That is confirmation that Vanderbilt is improving. It is confirmation that Vanderbilt is on the floor doing basketball stuff. It's confirmation that he's going full speed and taking contact. These are all of the steps that need to happen before a guy can come back and play.
It's my understanding that he has been practicing with coaches as opposed to players in terms of just the protocol right now. And also one would imagine the contact from coaches would not be as physical as contact from players, but it's still a step forward, and it's a significant one. And I've mentioned this before with Vando in particular. What has given me very cautious optimism, because I don't think anything with this Vando situation would be more appropriate than cautious with your optimism, is they've been increasingly detailed and specific in terms of what we're being told and the information, which makes me feel like they are increasingly confident that he's going to be on the court. Because, I mean, quite frankly, beyond the fact that they obviously want him out there for the team's health, they want him out there because they want to help Vando. If Vando has one more setback, they start looking bad with it. Like, they really start looking like, no, seriously, what's going on? Because we're approaching a calendar year since Vando last played, and a lot of starts and stops. Not to mention the whole we didn't tell you guys during the offseason, but he had double foot surgery. Like, that stuff starts adding up after a while. Sure. So this gives me, again, very cautious optimism that they are confident about this, because as we've discussed before, they're often cagey.
Well, I think they're cagey both because they're cagey because this is sort of how every team seems to do it now, and because they legitimately just didn't know. Like, there was so much uncertainty about the injuries, and like you say, like, you think you're confident, and then like, like you got the other foot operated on, then you're like, oh, but it's going okay, and then no, it's not, and you look up and it's 2025, and the guy still hasn't played a game yet. So I can understand being a little gun shy here. They got a month.
I mean, the game still matter at this point. The game still matters. So technically speaking, Rob Pelinka didn't lie.
That's true,
because he did say that they were confident that Vando would be back when the games mattered.
Right, they still matter.
They do. I mean, the Lakers are in the thick of a Western Conference. You're always jockeying for seeding. Like, it really does matter. So for the time,
shame on us for assuming he meant the first one, but he just meant any of them.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Pelinka is a man. I mean, look, the games next year matter too.
It's true.
They all do.
Don't they all matter on one level or another? The other big thing about this is, Andy, we are a month away from the trade deadline, February 8th. So, today's the 9th. Right. So the 9th, you get now it's a full calendar month. Here we go. And one of the big things that will influence, I think, how the Lakers approach the trade deadline. There's obviously, how many games are you winning and losing? The big picture, 30,000 foot view of are they worth investing in more than they already have? The D'Angelo Russell thing, which is pretty, I don't want to say it was a no-brainer because, as we've talked about, there were trade-offs involved in this thing. But the idea of trading D'Lo, I think it was something that everybody had grown accustomed to the idea, at the very least, that it could happen,
including, by the way, D'Angelo Russell.
Oh yeah, he probably wonders why it took this long.
I mean, remember he opened media day saying surprise, acknowledging y'all didn't expect to see me here, did you?
Except us. We did.
We were the only ones.
In some ways, I'm surprised he's still not here. But either way, the other thing about this is getting Vando back in the next with a week or so or two gives them another idea of what they need. Where are your needs? Do you need a big physical center? Do you need another defensive wing? Do you need more help in the backcourt? The Lakers are going to have to really prioritize. And, I've read a couple reports that, one of the things the Lakers want to do is be able to take a look at whether or not you can use Jared Vanderbilt as a better small ball center option than Rui Hachimura. And that is something that you need to look at. You need to be able to have a view. I know Vanderbilt's been on the team. I know they've seen him do stuff like that before, but it is a different group. And you need to see both what it looks like this year. Every year is different. And most especially, you need to see what Vanderbilt himself looks like and how capable he is of filling a role. And so to get this information, knock on wood, with where he plays 4 or 5 games before you got to have to make a definitive decision at the deadline, that's a big deal for the Lakers.
It's also, too, I mean, I am sure that, there's been so much time with Vando sidelined, unfortunately, that it becomes difficult to recreate all the details in your mind. But I'm sure he has played some small ball center, but that has not been a primary role for Vando since he's been here. It's been much more filled by LeBron and Rui than Vando, even when Vando was healthy. So the idea that you would need an extended look at it to figure out the viability, that actually does make sense. I mean, because it's not something that he's done before on a regular basis. And point of fact, in terms of just sheer size, and sheer frame, he is smaller than both LeBron and Rui.
Yep.
So it is something that you need to take a look at. And there are plenty of guys who thrive seemingly undersized there. DFS had a lot of success in Brooklyn playing that role.
And I think you agree, this is a matchup based thing. It's not something, they're going to throw Jared Vanderbilt out against, Karl Anthony Towns and see what happens.
No, I mean, that's where you'd go with your larger center, the actual that feel. I don't know everything about coaching basketball, but that feels like an AD assignment to me.
So fans are really irritated. A large contingent of the fans, the 27,000 subscribers to the Locked On Lakers channel here on YouTube, are frustrated by the small ball thing. But I will explain next why I think, to some degree, this approach makes some sense, and potentially leaning into the idea of, we have our center and our small ball lineup might be a better alternative. We'll get into that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Ultimate College Basketball HC. I want to tell you about a brand new mobile game that's really exciting. Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed of being a college basketball coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program, from recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals, even managing scholarships. Like, this is all in your hands, hands-on. It feels like you're actually with a program. And when it comes to game time, you get to draw up the offensive plays, set your strategy, and you're not just building for this current season. Like, you're building a program, a future. Like, you're trying to create a dynasty, like your own UConn in Ultimate College Basketball HC. There's a special offer for Locked On NBA listeners. Use promo code LOCKEDONCBB, all in caps, inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. To download Ultimate Coach Basketball HC, just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today.
So, quick reminder, the Locked On Daily newsletter, you go subscribe, you go to Locked On Lakers, and you have Locked On Lakers sent to your inbox every single day. Not just the show itself and links to that, but also some NBA analysis and not for the Lakers and around the league. So it's a valuable asset for NBA fans everywhere. Go to lockedondaily.com, click on Locked On Lakers, and you are subscribed. We talked about this, I think it was the end of last week, the story that Dan Wojcicki at the Times wrote, talking to scouts around the league who question whether or not the Lakers, their biggest priority really is a backup center, if that's really where they need to be putting their assets. And I know that flies in the face of a lot of what many fans think, certainly, especially after the Houston game, came up again, I think, a little bit in the Dallas game, just because of like the lack of ability to really take advantage, perhaps, of size. I just still can't get there. I love the idea. Like, if the Lakers can acquire a guy who can play with AD and won't get played off in the playoffs and, can rebound and, defends a little bit as a rim protector, like, okay, you're kind of discussing Miles Turner. Are you going to be able to trade for Miles Turner? Probably not. I don't think, with what the Lakers have and where the Pacers are, I don't think that's something that I would put my faith in. Is it impossible Turner gets traded? No, but the kind of player that you're talking about there is essentially a starting center. And trading for a starting center only makes sense if you have starting center minutes to provide, because you're going to be paying starting center rates to get that guy. And the Lakers don't have starting center minutes to give to anyone. I don't talk short of somebody again like Turner or
you could
Jokic.
Yeah. Look, you could, and I've seen people make that argument for, say, Walker Kessler, but I think Walker Kessler or, Miles Turner, the fit is obvious just because he's such a well-established commodity at this point. And the Lakers had been linked to Turner in the past, and I lobbied my ass off trying to make that deal happen, and unfortunately was not successful. Proof, if nothing else, for some of the listeners who, if they don't like what we say, they worry that we're influencing the organization in a bad way. Trust me, we're not. We know, because we've heard from people, they've heard the show. I'm just telling you, we're not influencing them. Look, think about all the things that we've wanted that have not happened. Trust me, we're not influencing.
I can't influence anything that goes on in my own house. What they do in El Segundo.
No, again, we know that there are people inside the building who've heard the show. We know that for a fact, but we also know for a fact, because of that, they're not listening to us. Someone like, I brought him up before, Nick Richards. I think if you could get him backup center in Charlotte, he would be a perfect addition, because you can only expend so much capital on him because of what makes sense, but also he makes like $5 million. Like, somebody like Jalen Hood-Schifino matches up perfectly with Richards. Maybe you throw in a vet minimum guy to make the money work. Maybe there's somebody else Charlotte wants to add on in a minor deal, whatever. You attach a second or two or whatever to make it worth Charlotte's while.
Do they have any left?
I think
they did, but maybe they do.
I think they do, but it could become problematic if they ever want to make any of the firsts that have conditional. I think that could be something.
It is complicated for them. They had 3 that they controlled, I think, without any issues, and all 3 of those went in the. So I'm not sure they actually can trade seconds anymore.
I'm not sure. They might be able to do future seconds, something like. I don't know. I actually don't know the answer. But the point being, remove the logistics of it and just conceptually, somebody like Nick Richards makes sense because. He'd be an upgrade over Jackson Hayes or Christian Coloco, or I think Christian Wood, should he ever become available. He would be better than everybody they have. He slots perfectly into that type of role. And I think he could play 10 to 12 minutes during the playoffs. And that's all he's going to play during the playoffs, if that. And that's fine. And I think he'd be helpful during the regular season. As far as the idea, though, if they ended up just sticking with kind of medium ball lineups, to me, what the Dallas loss demonstrated wasn't even so much the need for another center as they need better rebounding. This team needs better rebounders, period. And, this is where you look at some of the small ball lineups. Rui, for his position, he's not a good rebounder. He's actually been good on the offensive glass this year, but for the most part, he's not been a good rebounder for his career. Austin is not a bad rebounder for a guard, but he's not a great rebounder either for the most part. He'll have occasional games, but it's not really what he does. DFS is, I think, good for his size, but not great. Vanderbilt, if he comes back, Vando is great on the glass. He's really good. Someone like Vando, frankly, will help the Lakers on the boards more than Jackson Hayes, even though Hayes is 4 or 5 inches taller than Vando. Than Vando. Vando's a better rebounder than him. Some of this is lacking skills as opposed to pure size.
I think this is a huge.
And Dallas was missing Daniel Gafford in this game, and Lively was in foul trouble.
Right.
And they still out-rebounded the Lakers.
This gets to my point. Look, the reason I didn't include Kessler even in the discussion at the beginning is because I don't think Utah's going to trade him, because I agree with you. He made this point earlier in the week. It does not make sense for the Jazz unless they are completely overwhelmed by an offer. And that seems to be where the reporting is on this. Okay, if you do something where you're willing to, quite frankly, wildly overpay for Walker Kessler, good as he is, 23-year-old center whose defensive metrics leap off a computer screen. Okay, they'll do that, but the Lakers can't make that offer. The best they could do would be those 2 first rounders, unprotect the pick they owe Utah, and they'll give them Anthony Davis or something. I don't know, but realistically, I just don't think the Lakers are in a position where they can target position over skill set. They have to acquire the best skill sets that they can to, at the most effective cost that they're able to, because that's what they have. You cannot address all of their needs with what they've got, because if and you trade too many players in your rotation to go get some big, name somewhere and makes $40 million, then you've got to replace 3 or 4 players in your rotation. They just don't have that luxury. So get the best player. If you can find the best rebounder, I don't care if he's 6'8", 6'7", that could help them. Go get a rebounder. If you can find a ball handler, a bench scorer, or whatever it is, I would favor that over this sort of, I don't want to call it obsession, but hyper focus from a lot of places on it's got to be a backup. They do need another big. I'm not saying the need isn't there. And if that's where it lines up, great. I'm not I'm not against the idea, but I don't think they should overpay for a player who isn't going to help them when it really matters. And I don't think they should overpay just because center is something that is an obvious need.
Yeah, again, like you, if they can find if you can somehow get somebody on Miles Turner's level, or I guess Kessler's level, and it really works, like, okay, fine, you figure out the rest later. If for no other reason than perhaps this sets up the Lakers well moving forward. And, somebody like a Nick Richards to me, I think would be perfect. But this comes up a lot, for example, when you talk about the Denver matchup and Jokic and who's going to be there to handle Jokic and that size and whatever. The last year in the playoffs, and I think the majority of games AD has played lately against Jokic, it's largely been more or less a draw. The real problem they've had, to me at least, because Jokic is a problem for the whole damn league. Yeah. To me, the real problem the Lakers have had is the inability to guard Michael Porter Jr.
Right.
Michael Porter Jr. is the guy that's been killing him. And guess what? DFS now on this team, and Vando, should he be back, those guys are much better equipped to handle Michael Porter Jr. than Rui. In all honesty, I mean, this was a matchup.
No question.
And really, Denver had no good matchup for Rui. And I think those guys actually, because Denver keeps coming up, I actually think those guys will matter more in a matchup against Denver than center X that the Lakers might not be able to get anyway.
And I just think it really, that what you're talking about there, and we can quit here, really illustrates the point you're making. The improvement that they need is with rebounding. And I'm not talking about probably a 6'2" guy who rebounds well for his position. I'm not quite going that far.
Josh Hart's not available.
Oh God, I'd do that in a heartbeat. No pun intended.
We loved him when he was a rookie and a second-year guy with the Lakers.
Sure. So that part is, again, get the skill set. And if he's 6'9" and is really more of a power forward, that's okay. But all of this, to wrap it back up, you get a better view when you get to see what Vanderbilt is capable of for a week or two before you actually get to the deadline. So we will try to keep people as updated as we can on where the Lakers may or may not be playing, or when they may or may not be playing, or where. Obviously, the team will certainly be putting out alerts. The NBA will be putting out alerts. Again, thinking of everybody in the community across LA, people who know people in LA, people who just care about other human beings. It is as bad as it looks on TV. You're not here and you're watching on TV from somewhere else. It really is as bad as it looks on TV.
If you don't have to leave your house because of an evacuation order or anything like that, seriously, stay home.
Just stay home.
Stay indoors at home as much as you can. Stay safe.
So we will see everyone tomorrow.